Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 19 of the Anime Banter podcast with your host Turtle, Sean, and Mike. Thank you for joining us today. How are y'all doing?
Doing all right, I guess. How about you, Turtle?
I'm doing pretty good, I think. And, congratulations to us for hitting 19 episodes of the podcast. We're almost at 20, man.
2 more episodes will be of legal drinking age.
I feel
It
like
feels
I've been
good.
recording forever, and I feel like we also just started. It's a really weird feeling.
I'm sure that's partly because of the Demon Files as well.
Well, yeah, that's been, we haven't been recording really with that right now because we're between seasons, so.
Yeah, but just doing a podcast of some kind
that's
in
true,
general.
yeah. I have been podcasting for a little while now.
Well, make sure if you listeners haven't checked it out, check out the Deepman Files. And I'm even on one of the episodes. And hopefully there might be room for me to return as a voice actor on season 2. Because I'm interested.
Potentially.
Wink, 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 nudge, nudge.
I am
Right?
a producer, after all, on the show.
I heard Turtle will do it for free. In fact,
Say, I
he'll
did
pay
the
you
first
to
one
do
for
it.
free.
I
He'll
was
pay
gonna
you
say,
to be on.
I heard that everyone does it for free.
I will give you $2 to let me
Sorry,
record an
John.
episode.
Sorry, Johnny. I didn't ask for two.
We'll talk.
$2. You can get two things at the dollar store.
$2.
$2. Sorry, Johnny. I don't have a dime.
I didn't ask for a dime. $2.
$2.
That's from the movie Better Off Dead. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's amazing.
I still have not.
It's really good, honestly.
I haven't watched it yet either.
I do not watch a lot of movies. I recommend Better Off Dead. It's good. It should be a classic.
But is it better than The Room?
Well, I mean, I haven't seen The Room yet, so.
Also have not seen The Room.
Anime Banter Movie Day!
Yeah, listen, listeners, if
that.
you want us to review The Room on Anime Banter, because, I know it's not anime, but if you want a review of The Room anyway, tell us on social media.
We could do a banter blitz on it.
And when are we going to review my favorite anime, King of the Hill?
Damn it, Bobby. Listen.
I don't know if I'd call that anime, but I like that show, so I'd be into talking about it and watching it again.
It is coming back.
I don't know you.
That's my purse.
I don't know you.
I don't know you.
I remember watching that for the first time on like Adult Swim and be like, I don't get the show. But I kept watching it because they kept airing it, and it just clicked one day and was like, I get this show now. It's really funny.
I remember watching it when it first aired. I'm like, this is weird, but I'm like, I love it.
I also loved it, but my dad hated it, and he would be on. Okay, so growing up, I didn't have cable. We had the antennas, and we got Fox 8 from Johnstown.
Really?
Somehow, yeah, we got Fox 8 from Johnstown. Well, and Fox 53 from Pittsburgh. So we had two different Fox channels through the airwaves, which was really bizarre. And at 5:30, Fox 8 played King of the Hill, and my dad would get home sometimes from work, like between 5:30 and 6. And if we heard the garage door go up, we'd like lunge for the remote and turn it, because if my dad came in and we were watching King of the Hill, oh my gosh, he'd be so mad. I don't know why, just the presence of the show brought him such anger. But
did he bring the propane?
Yes.
Did he have the propane accessories too?
I can confirm I was never beat as a child for watching King of the Hill. Can confirm. Just a disclaimer here. I was never beat for watching King of the Hill.
Propane and propane accessories.
I mean, Mr. Strickland is up there as one of the most ridiculous characters from any show.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like a womanizer, a gambler, like pretty much like every degenerate activity you can engage in, the man was a part of.
I feel like he's having like a heart attack and surviving every other episode. Like he just keeps on going. A true like degenerate force of nature.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Turtle and I actually just finished our D&D campaign we were part of.
We did, and it was fun.
It was a blast. It was the first campaign both of us have done for D&D. I know, Turtle, you've done some other campaigns. Grant, I don't know if
Yeah,
you've ever completed them.
no, there was a group in college of us that we started a campaign and we did a couple times, but then fell off. So this is like the first full campaign that I've been a part of for really anything. There have been a couple other like uh, D&D inspired like RPGs, but nothing to completion. There was a Star Wars one,
Where you
and
lost an arm.
yeah, I decided to be a Chiss Jedi, and I lost my arm in like the first day, so that was kind of a bummer. My own
Uh,
lightsaber.
it is pretty bad. Yeah, I, as a former Jedi, almost tried to swipe some kyber crystals to go sell on the black market. I wasn't a good Jedi. I was urged greatly by the GM to not do that.
But you did it anyway.
No, no, I let him go.
And
I did let it go.
there was I'm trying to remember the other game that they made.
Did you do the
Sentinels.
Witcher? Oh, that's right. We did the Sentinels one.
Yeah,
Did you
we
do
did
the
the
Witcher one with
Sentinels.
us?
I don't think I did.
Okay, I couldn't remember who took part of that one.
No, hold up, you did. You were the rocker
Yeah,
who shot lightning out of his guitar.
Well, that was for
that
Sentinels.
was
Yeah,
Sentinels.
Sentinels. Oh, is that what you're
That was,
talking about? No?
we did a Sentinels one during COVID,
Yeah.
and then we tried. I believe before COVID, we tried doing the Witcher RPG, and that one was really rough because I was the only person who played as a Witcher character, and the game master told us that role set was very unforgiving if you weren't playing a Witcher character.
I might have been there. I
I
don't
think
really
you
remember
were.
it.
I think you were a dwarf or something.
I honestly don't remember. I vaguely remember maybe taking part in that, but we didn't play a lot. It was like one or two
No.
sessions, and we
Yeah.
called it quits.
Yeah.
But the
But
D
yeah,
and D campaign was fun.
it was a lot of fun. So we had 7 of us total, the DM and 6 players. And I want to say all but one of the players, this was like their first real campaign. So it was very combat heavy, but it was a lot of fun. It was 8 sessions, and we had to go to, it was sort of like played out as like a Legend of Zelda. There were 4 temples we had to go to, beat the boss in each, and then there was a secret dungeon naturally, and then the final boss.
Everything was going really well until that final boss there. We had some
Yeah.
complications,
It's
but
what
it was a good
happens when you
time.
it's what happens when you try and fight a god.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was kind of on the fence about it the whole time. I wasn't sure, but I was a chaotic good monk character, so I had to at least side with my friends.
I was playing a lawful good dragonborn paladin that became super broken, and our DM was very generous in roles, like in giving us equipment, and because it was our first time playing, he used an array for the stats instead of us rolling for stats.
Yeah, you were outputting some big damage.
I got 3 attacks a turn.
I like the array because it kind of balances everyone. Sometimes in a game and someone's character is just completely busted, and sometimes someone's character completely sucks. You just feel like you're not playing the same game as them.
And I think amongst the entire sessions that we did, I think I died only like 6 times, which is pretty good for me. So
And the other times you were punching me in the head.
yeah, you and Dave. I think I punched Dave in the head a few times. You know, I'm really good at rolling nat ones, so
You would either roll a nat 1 or a nat 20.
there
There was
is
like
no in
no in
between.
between. I
Crit
was so
success or
mad.
crit fail.
I was so mad that last session. I probably rolled at least 5 19s.
Oh, you were rolling the
That's
19s.
like
You just couldn't
just
get the
what
20.
I didn't get roll a single 20. I'm like, come on, it's right there. It's like I'm one off. But big shout out to our DM Dan. He did a really great job keeping everyone involved, and it was a whole lot of fun. So definitely looking forward to our next campaign.
Shout out to the rest of the boys who joined us in the campaign. It was a great time.
Shall we jump into the Vinland Saga?
Let's do it.
I am ready.
Today we are talking about episodes 7 and 8 of Vinland Saga Season 1. So episode 7, this happened a couple episodes ago where IMDb had a title and Netflix had a different title, and it happened with both episodes we're discussing today. So if you look at IMDb, the episode title for episode 7 is called Normanni, but when you watched on Netflix, it was called Partner in War.
Huh.
And
Yeah,
can confirm on Crunchy. I'm watching the subtitle version on Crunchyroll, and it is Normanni.
okay.
Interesting.
I don't know why Netflix decided to pick their own episode titles. And when you go into like the menu on Netflix, it just shows episode like the episode titles on like the episode screen are just episode 1 through 24. It's not the actual title of each episode. It's not until you get into the episode and it's playing that they show you the name of the episode. But
I
yeah,
wonder if like Normanni is it loosely translated to partner in war.
I don't think so because they were making reference to Normanni in the episode a couple times and they were kept referring to it as Northerner.
Huh.
So yeah, I don't understand. Like, I think Normanni's a cooler name than Partner in War for the episode title.
Definitely.
So the narrator opens the show with more history on the war between the English, the Danes, and the Vikings. I just love the narrator. Like we talked about it last episode. Huge fan of the narrator. Huge fan of getting more backstory, especially because this is a historical show, or a historical anime. So really digging that. And the year is now 1012, and Thorfinn is now 16, just for reference on year and age. And the episode begins, and we see that son of a bitch Floki kneeling before the king of Denmark, and he's confused on why they are pulling their men out of England. And the king states it's to allow them to rest instead of marching during the winter. And Floki was like, "Yes, my king, sure, that makes sense." But really, how pissed was he?
He did look pretty upset.
He also looked very old.
Yeah, I
Yeah, definitely. I was like, this guy's not going to battle, right?
Time has not been kind to him.
I mean, I think about, and here's stuff they don't talk about, right? You never get this in. The only instance I've ever seen of this was in the Dark Knight Rises. Whenever Bruce Wayne would go to put on the Batman gear and he had to put those like knee braces on. He's like, yeah, years of parkour just like destroyed my knees. And I'm like, but yeah, I mean that's the thing is that like I think about like My Hero Academia, how like Bakugo, he does those like blasts with his hands, and I'm like, oh my gosh, in order for him to keep his arms straight, it's put so much like stress on his muscles and joints. This guy at age 30 is going to have the body of like a 60-year-old.
just totally
But
broken.
they don't talk about stuff in shows, but you have to think that king, he's probably 35 years young. You
But what about Deku? With all the damage he's put on his body using one over or one for his like every it's like his arms are absolutely shot.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
he's broken already.
yeah. If he ever gives, if he ever, I don't know what's gonna happen at the end of the series, but if he has the opportunity to give that power to someone else, based on things I know about the show, I don't think that'll be happening. But if he did do that, he would become like Skeleton All Might, just like broken down body.
And talking of someone looking much older, Askeladd is looking much older as well. But then there's Bjorn, who looks the absolute same as he has all these years.
Forever young, dude. Some
It
people
can
will just
only
like
age one character an episode.
I'm sure leading a ship and leading like being a Viking ages you much like all that stress probably ages you very quickly.
I would think so.
So we learn Askeladd and his crew are setting sail for France because of the peace in England between England and the Danes, and they have no work until the peace is over. So they decide to set sail for France. We land in France, and Askeladd once again wants Thorfinn to be his scout. And we see Thorfinn is still using the daggers as his weapon of choice. And Thorfinn is not a fan of Askeladd sending him out to be the scout once again. Like Thorfinn's like, or Askeladd's like, here's a speech to deliver. Let the pathetic army know how pathetic they are. The attacking army, let them know how pathetic they are. Their tactics suck. They suck. They're gonna die. We'll help them for 50% of the spoils. Not treasure, spoils, which we learn to be a very key phrase later in the episode.
Yeah.
Gotta read the fine print.
And Thorfinn is like, no, fuck you. Like, I've killed how many men? I've done all these scouting missions. I've been the person behind enemy lines to keep your guys safe. And you still won't give me what I want. And Askeladd's like, well, how about 3 gold for your scouting? He's like, and Thorfinn's just like, come on, like, just sort of looks at him like, really? Like, you know what I want. I want my dole. I've proven myself, and Askeladd's like, well, that's going to cost you the head of a general instead.
That look Thorfinn gives Askeladd when he's like, oh, how about 3 gold? He just stares him down like, no.
I just love this episode, the dynamic between Thorfinn and Askeladd. Like, you can tell, like, Askeladd's just Askeladd's like, I know what I'm doing. And Thorfinn's like, I know what you're doing. But stop fucking playing around and give me what I want. And he kept, like, all episode, he's like, give me what I want. I want this. Like, come on. Stop playing around.
I just want to kill you. Honorably.
My name is Thorfinn. You killed my father. Prepare to die. I just hope Askeladd, when they do duel, and if Thorfinn kills him, I hope Askeladd's like, what do you want? I'll give you anything. Thorfinn's like, I want my father back, you son of a bitch.
Shank.
Quacha.
It just I don't want to talk about the next episode yet, but it is cool that we see Thorfinn get his this whole episode's purpose is to lead up to their duel in the next episode.
Thorfinn leaves, and Bjorn can't believe that after all these years, that Thorfinn is still so powered by revenge, and he's like, and Bjorn's even like questioning Askeladd when it comes to Thorfinn now. Like, you can tell Bjorn is starting to take a liking to Thorfinn after all these years, and he's like, because he even asks Askeladd like, are you sure you really want to send Thorfinn? Like, and Askeladd still views Thorfinn as a stray, at least publicly, and that if he dies, he dies, and he doesn't expect Thorfinn to return.
You gotta love the way Askeladd is handling this. He's like, if he returns with an officer's head, then we probably won the battle, and I get my money and I win. If he dies, then I don't have someone who wants to kill me in my group, and I win. like whatever happens to Thorfinn, Askeladd wins.
It's the opposite of a catch-22. It's a 22 catch.
Oh yeah.
Thorfinn rides up on the attackers' camp. They never really state like who, like they just call them clans really, but they never really state like if they're both part of France, like they're both clans in France, but they don't really explain the who they are. So we'll call the attackers camp the red team because that's what they wore. And the defender team we'll call the blue camp. We'll have a little red versus blue here.
I was gonna say, is this some red versus blue happening right before our very eyes?
Let's call it a puma. So Thorfinn is saying like in Norse, he's like, I'm an envoy. Does anyone here speak Norse? And like everyone's looking at him like he has 3 heads. Like, who the fuck is this kid? Like, and I love how the one guy's like, oh, he's a spy from the blue camp. It's like, he doesn't speak French.
Clearly, he must be a spy.
It's like, you guys are getting your ass kicked with stupid tactics. They don't need to send a spy.
That's the perfect time to send a spy. What are you talking about?
It's like, it reminds me of like playing Civilization 3. It's like, okay, we're gonna send these low level like military units that don't have like that just have wooden clubs, and we're gonna send them in to fight fucking musketeers with like gunpowder and shit. Like, you guys are getting slaughtered. Like, they don't need spies on you. So eventually, someone realizes that Thorfinn is speaking Norse, and they take him to the leader of the Red Camp, Jabathi, who is ridiculously animated. Like, that mouth was so fucking large.
Really, another. This is the second really bizarre character that they've drawn. The first was ears, and now we have mouth. I'm telling you, hair's coming, man.
I will say the ribs he was eating looked real good though.
They
Dude,
did.
anime food in general, so good.
Yeah. But whenever I saw this guy, the Jabathi, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it was a choice to animate him this way. It was
He's
a
almost like a
choice.
frog.
Yeah.
Very frog-like in the head and the mouth and the tongue. It wasn't stretchy, but I mean, like, he's very frog-like.
And at first, Jabathi believes that a 50-50 split of the spoils is ridiculous. Like, he's like, we're doing fine without you, and like, we don't need you. And then Jabathi realizes that Thorfinn is a Normanni, or a Northerner, and his tune changes very quickly. Like, he's like, well, maybe we'll partner with you, but you're still not getting 50-50. And it's not until Thorfinn's like, well, if you don't take the deal, you're going to have 30 Northerners coming and attacking you. And he's like, oh, okay, we'll take that deal. We're good. But during this whole negotiation, and this, I know this was one of my gripes with the last episode when Thorfinn was telling the English mother and daughter to run. And he's like, I even said it in English. And like, I was talking about the language not really coming through very well. I really liked how they used the translator in this scene. So you could actually, like, yes, they were like, the audio, they were speaking the same language, but you can tell, okay, Thorfinn is speaking Norse, the French are speaking French, like the red camp is speaking French. Like, you're having the translation, and you hear the translator talking in the background during the negotiation.
I did think that was a pretty cool touch that they didn't have to go that far, but the fact that they, had the translator character in there, it's like, well, that makes it more authentic because someone's going to have to translate what's being said back and forth. So it was a nice touch. It just made it a little bit more realistic.
Yeah, I've enjoyed. So I was gonna say I've enjoyed the realism. The action does not have a lot of realism. Like Thor's having like 15 arrows poking out of him and not dropping dead immediately, and in the what is it in the next episode they're gonna show someone throw an axe, and that one throwing axe cuts through like four people, and
That
I'm
scene
like,
is
yeah,
awesome, by the way.
no, yeah, it was cool as heck, but I was like, no, that's not how that. It's just not how that goes. So, uh, so some of the action is a little ridiculous, but things I love the nuances where they think about things like a translator being important. I like it. Well designed. Instead of that, like you watch things that take place in space, everyone just or you play Dungeons and Dragons, everyone just kind of speaks the same common language. Makes no dang sense.
I mean, speaking of D&D, my monk had a skill that I could, speak like every language or understand and be understood by anything that spoke. So that's it's kind of like us the viewer because everything's being spoken in, our language depending on what version you watch. You just have to imagine that like each faction is speaking their own language and we've got the translator who can go back and forth.
I really liked how they showed both angles of Thorfinn's single signal being launched. Like, we saw it from both the blue camp, and we saw it from Askeladd Chips. I thought that was a nice little touch.
What was it? One high and two low.
Yep. Yeah, one high, two low. It's like, it was cool because it's like you had the blue camp. They're like, huh, that's weird. Wonder what that's all about. And then you had Askeladd's crew. It's like, okay, there's the signal. Let's go. I really like how especially in this episode, they show both, like, so many sides of the battle, and like the pre-battle, the battle itself and the post battle. So it's the next morning, and someone get Jabbathy's right hand man a new bandage for his eye wound because he just keeps bleeding.
Yeah, that had to hurt like a lot. The
It's
fact that
like
he's like still doing his job right now is pretty impressive.
it's like you lost an eye, your eye is still bleeding. How have you not like bled out or something or passed out from blood loss?
He doesn't have time for that. He has a job to do.
Get this man a new bandage, please. Jabbathy starts freaking out like, "Oh, your guys are late. What the hell?" Like, and Thorfinn is rightfully annoyed that Askeladd is late, and he calls Jabbathy a fat ass and to start the assault. And
That
Jabbathy's like, "I don't have my translator here, but I know you insulted me."
was a good scene.
Thorfinn having that teenage angst.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the translator was there, but the translator like gasped that he said that and did not want to say
That
that
that's
himself.
that's right.
So he just whips around. He's like, "You insulted me, didn't you?"
Yo, if he knew what he said, yeah, Thorfinn would definitely be a dead man right now.
I don't
I
know. I think he
I
could
was
fight
gonna
his way
say,
out of there.
You
yeah,
might fight the whole army.
the red camp didn't seem too great when it came to combat. Hell, they even started shooting at him as Thorfinn charged towards the fort to take on the general. And you would have thought the red camp was full of stormtroopers with how badly they were missing.
Ooh, I'm telling you, it was not good.
Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing.
Like they didn't even get close to grazing him. I said across his nose, not up it.
Who made this man an archer?
I did, sir. He's my cousin. I'm surrounded by assholes.
How many reds do we have in this army anyway?
I lost it at this next scene when Askeladd's crew are carrying the boats on their shoulders and are just running towards Jabbathy, and he's like, "Oh God, what the hell? Why are these boats on land?" And he's like freaking out. And it's like, how many times have Askeladd's crew done this? That like, it's like, how many times have you used this tactic?
That's a good question. Have they done something like that before, or was it Askeladd's idea to be like, let's just carry the boats to get to where we need to be?
I mean, those boats can't be light.
Oh goodness, no.
I mean, I get that they're strong, but like, it's like this these physics aren't lining up. I don't think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did anyone watch Physical 100
I did
on
not.
Netflix?
I have not.
It's a Korean fitness show where they take 100 competitors and have them compete in feats of like endurance, strength, and speed, uh, to come up with who the most physically fit person is in all of Korea or whatever. And straight up though, there's one of the competitions they have to now they added weights to the ship, but they actually got a ship, like a big wooden ship, and they had to like pull it like with like a rope, and they had like things on the side where they could push it. I'm telling you, if this ship weighs anything near what that ship weighed, it is impossible to move it that way, especially up a mountain. Like, yeah, maybe like 15 feet, right? If everyone gives it their full strength, there's no way. It's absolute. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is history out there of Vikings doing this sort of thing, and I just don't know about it. But based on what it looked like, I was like, this doesn't look correct. Like, where were they gripping? You need to grip.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just like push it. I don't know. Like, it's I don't know. That I thought it was really cool for the show, but realistically, no.
They were so fueled by their love of treasure that they broke the rules. Like treasure, carry the ship. Let's go.
Yeah, they went plus ultra for that.
I
I
mean,
the
there were a couple guys that were carrying the ship that looked like they were only using one hand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is just really cartoony. I appreciate the humor, but I don't see that happening in real life.
It was a very comedic scene, and I was all for
Well,
it.
It
also, it reminded me
was.
of I don't know if there are any Metalocalypse fans listening, but there is a scene where they have like a ship and it somehow gets onto land, and they're like, "Well, how are we gonna get to the other side?" And they're like, "We're gonna pull the ship," and they like pull the ship up a mountain, and then yeah, it's just like it's extremely comical in the show.
Stops Cobsians me. Stops Cobsians me.
Good guy.
I'm very excited to see that show when it comes to Pittsburgh in September.
Yeah, and their final movie is coming out soon-ish, I think, maybe later this year.
I believe you're right.
I would love to go back and like watch that show because I've only seen random episodes here and there. I would like to watch the whole thing.
I think it's still
It's,
on Max.
I think it's still on Max. It's worth the watch.
I don't have Max, unfortunately.
I love how Jabathy forgot he aligned with Askeladd. He's like, after they ran by them with the ships, he's like, oh, those were our allies. Cool.
He's not real bright, is he?
No. Clearly he was the son of someone in power, and he got none of the leadership traits.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, that's the problem with like some. I've heard some people say that they're like like a monarchy type of style of government in general, right? Is a pretty efficient form of government because there's one guy at the top and he can make any decision he wants and it gets done, and it's a pretty efficient form of government, assuming that the person at the top is competent. And this guy obviously isn't necessarily a monarch, but he probably inherited that position. He's probably some sort of lord, right? And he's like, oh yeah, my parent, my dad was a lord, right? So now I'm the lord, and that's just kind of how it worked. If
And
that guy was a if that guy was a loser, then you just had to follow his rules anyway.
yeah, he's definitely a loser, and I kind of like how they animate him, and he's like 3 foot tall, and he's like so not shaped like a normal person.
Like, was this supposed to be like a crack at Napoleon? Like, before Napoleon was a big deal?
I kind of thought that myself. I'm like, is this like Napoleon? That was a totally different time period from when he was in. But is that kind of what they were going for? But wasn't he like somewhat of a good military strategist until he
Yes.
made mistakes?
And he wasn't as short as everyone believes he was.
Yeah.
Askeladd's crew make it to the river, and I love how Askeladd is so arrogant. He's like, they made this so easy for us. There's no defenses here, and the water is shallow, and this is going to be so easy. And then they turn the corner, and they just start getting lit up with crossbows.
Oh, that guy, he gets like shot in the spine. He's like rolling
Oh,
around on the ship, like, oh, I can't get it out.
Get bodied.
you gotta love how no one helps him either, right?
I know.
Everyone's just
They're like,
like,
oh,
listen, this is just part of the job.
they're like, oh, good, more treasure for everyone else.
Can I have his share?
Askeladd's just like, keep rowing, you bastards.
They stop shooting at Askeladd, and the crew's like, what? Why'd they stop shooting at us? What happened? And Askeladd knows immediately. He's like, yes, I know what happened. And we see Thorfinn climbing the wall, getting on top of the wall, and the blue camp's like, why is a kid here? And he just starts wrecking fools and cutting them down. And I love how he cut the dude's fingers off.
Oh, that was nasty.
Oh, definitely brutal.
He cuts the guy's fingers off and then grabs his sword while the sword's midair and uses it as his own. Well, he's got the other dagger in his mouth, like frickin' Zoro from One Piece. I was like, really? Look at this guy.
I really liked how they did the first person perspective for Thorfinn at points in this episode. Him running, like, it was just cool how they're like, here he is, like, yep, here you go. Here's Thorfinn slicing people down from his perspective.
That was really well done, I think. Especially like they show him just, cutting these guys down one by one, and then he comes across these two dudes with a shield, and they show first person as he like I guess jumps off of their shields to jump over them to keep moving forward. That's just really cool.
Thorfinn gets his head of the general, but of course it falls into the water.
That cracked me up.
And Thorfinn's like, damn it! And he like immediately jumps off the wall, and the blue camp's like, what the fuck? And he gives chase to the head falling into the water.
He really wants that duel.
Next, we see Jabathy's men finally use the battering ram to open the gate, and the aftermath of Askeladd's crew slaughtering the blue camp was brutal to see.
And I just want to
Like,
mention that poor dude who takes the battering ram to the gut.
ooh,
That stunned me both times. I was watching this episode multiple times. Like, oh man, that had to hurt.
wrecked him, damn near killed him.
I think it did kill him. He's like bleeding out of his nose and his mouth. I was like, yeah, that dude's not gonna make it.
Jabbathi's all happy. He's like, "Ah, yes, we won the battle. This is great." And oh, the blue camp is dead, and it seems like that kid was who killed the general. And you know what? We should betray these pirates before they can like leave. Except Askeladd and his crew beat Jabbathi to the punch and took all the treasure.
And what a great shot that was to have them like they're already on the boats and Askeladd is just all decked out in treasure. He's got the crown, he's got the cape. He's like, "See ya. This is our 50%. Bye-bye."
I love how Askeladd is like, we said 50-50 on the spoils. We'll take the treasure, and hey, you won the battle and the fort. Like, it's a pretty fair deal if you ask me.
Jabbathi's like yelling at him, "I'll kill you." And Askeladd's like, "I'm sorry. I don't understand you." Such a dick move, but it was really funny.
It's moments like these where I just love Askeladd.
Yeah, we want Thorfinn to get his revenge, but at the same time, you're like, dang. Yeah, Askeladd is like, like Captain Jack Sparrow isn't a good guy. You know what I mean? But you're like, yeah, he's fun to watch though, and that's how I feel about Askeladd. I'm like, he's not necessarily like a good dude, but he's fun to watch.
That's a fair comparison, actually. I never thought about that. They have Jack Sparrow is the main character for all these Pirates of the Caribbean movies, but he is like kind of a jerk and a thief, and he's out for just himself. And his poor crew who follows him, they're like, "Oh, Jack Sparrow's the best guy ever." He's ditched them like how many times in those movies? And
Oh
and I feel
yeah,
like that's a fair comparison to Askeladd, where like if something came down to it, I feel like he would bail on his men if it meant him, getting out. If there was no other way, I feel like that's his path. He would ditch his crew.
for sure.
Every time I hear Jack Sparrow now, I think of the Lonely Island song with Michael Bolton. This is the tale of Captain Jack Sparrow.
That is a must see. Like just as any moment of comedy, that is a must see. When I first saw that, I died. I still die every time I see it. It's genuinely hilarious, I think.
And so Askeladd's like, all right, let's set sail. And Bjorn's like, wait, we don't have Thorfinn yet. And Askeladd's like, too bad, too sad. We're out. We got the treasure. And then a fucking head just lands right in front of Askeladd. And Thorfinn is just standing there soaked. And everyone's like, oh, he's still alive. That's incredible. And as Thorfinn's like, all right, motherfucker, it's time to go. And Askeladd accepts the challenge. But then they start getting shot at by Jabbathi's crew. He's like, but first we got our boat. And you just hear as the episode's ending, Thorfinn like pouting and complaining, like, stop running me away from me and stop ducking me and let's fight.
Yeah, I mean he's ready to throw down on the boat as they're being shot at. It's like timing, guy. Let's get to a safe landing and then the fight can begin. You don't want to take an arrow to the knee.
Can't be an adventure anymore if that happens.
I used to be a Viking, then I took an arrow to the knee.
Now it is time for Mike's Beer of the Week. This week's beer comes to you from Toppling Goliath and is their Cherry Fandango. Cherry Fandango is a sour that is reminiscent of a cinnamon crusted cherry pie, and it is both tart and sweet. Toppling Goliath is located in Decorah, Iowa. And before I even get into this beer, I'm just going to come out and say it. Toppling Goliath, they don't miss. They make some of the best IPAs I've had in the Sioux line. They have the Pseudo Sioux, the King Sioux, the double dry hop Pseudo Sioux. If you're an IPA fan, I would definitely check out the Toppling Goliath Sioux line. But even if you aren't an IPA fan, if you see anything from Toppling Goliath and you're a big craft beer fan, buy it. I have not had anything that I have not liked from this brewery. So when I saw this sour from Toppling Goliath, it became an instant buy, and I was not disappointed. It was just a fantastic sour. It had that strong sour on the front end, like those first couple sips, and then the more I drank it, I'm like, oh man, this is just so damn smooth. Like you got that cherry pie feeling, and you're like, yeah, this is excellent. The untapped average rating is a 4.19, and I give it a 4.5. Now we begin episode 8. And again, this is another episode where Netflix has its own title and IMDb has its own title. So the IMDb and I believe this one might be a depending on how translated is, like who did the translation, because the IMDb title is Beyond the Edge of the Sea, and the Netflix title is To the End of the Sea. So it's a little closer in name than episode 7. And the episode begins with Askeladd returning home, which I thought was a really cool beginning of the episode. And we learn his uncle Gorm rules this land.
And he
And
loves money.
it was really cool to see how the villagers reacted when Askeladd returned and how excited they were for his return. Like, they're like, oh, there's a ship on the horizon, get ready. And they're like, oh, just kidding, it's Askeladd. And everyone's just like, oh, Askeladd's home, Askeladd's home. Like, you had like villagers lining up to join his crew, and one of them like got all mad at Thorfinn when Thorfinn bumped into him, and he demanded Thorfinn apologize. And when Thorfinn looked at him, the dude immediately backed down. And to me, this whole like that whole part reminded me so much of when Floki's men showed up to Thor's island back in episode 2 or 3. Like, here's a small island, you get legit Vikings showing up, and everyone's like, "Oh, we want to join." Like, it felt very reminiscent of that to me.
For sure, I had the same vibes. It was a little deja vu done in a different way, you know.
I love how Askeladd had a cheering section and how all the ladies love him. Like, Askeladd's hanging out with his uncle, and the ladies are like, "Okay, 1, 2, 3." They're like, "We love you, Askeladd, Askeladd, ooh yeah, Askeladd." And Askeladd's just loving all the attention.
Oh, he's a hero. I mean, bringing back all that money. Like to us, he's a villain, but to his village, he's a true hero.
I love how Ascot's like, "Who wants a necklace from me?" And all the girls are like, "Ooh, me, me, me." And you hear the one go, "I want a ring."
Well, ladies, he's single.
I love how Gorm is like, "Okay, Askeladd, you owe me 1.25 coins per person per day. And this is what you owe for this." And Askeladd's like, "Uncle, I don't care. We'll pay you whatever you want." And Gorm is like, "Okay, cool. That's what I love to hear about from you." And then Gorm orders his slave, Hordaland, to go fetch some wine, and the first round is on Gorm.
We're back to the whole slave thing.
This episode in particular was very heavy on the slave stuff. But it was interesting, as we'll talk about later, it was very interesting to see like how even when you're not a slave, a purchased slave, you're still a slave to something. I really liked how later in the episode Askeladd points that out.
Yeah, yeah, that was a. You know, these two episodes, this episode 8 in particular, I kind of have a distaste for Askeladd, but then he does, he says these little bits of wisdom, and I'm like, I can't really put my finger on this guy. He's kind of all over the place.
Also, it seems like he's kind of anti-slavery. Right? I feel like he kind of just doesn't see the point in having a slave. But maybe I'm misreading that. I mean, because he's just always on the road, he can't really make use of one. But he didn't really seem to love the concept of it.
Which you
But
would think with like all the other acts of, unfair and evilness and things that he's done, like owning a slave, something that he would do, but he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he was trying to free her. I just think, he's kind of like towards the concept of it. Not owning a slave does not mean you're a good person. That's kind of just like the bare minimum.
Yeah. It's just it's he's hard for me to put my finger on as to like what he's about because he's just all over the place.
Like, what are his philosophies, right?
Yeah, I feel like in one episode, like when he fights Thor's, I'm like, okay, he definitely has some sort of respect for honor, but then like after he fights Thor's, he I feel like he really respects Thor's, and he does have this sense of honor, but then like he never uses it, and he's willing to cheat and plunder and all these horrible things. So I'm very confused by him.
It's the life of a pirate.
Yeah, I guess he's very hard for me to read.
Askeladd tells his uncle, "Hey, I need you to be a witness for something for me. I sort of have to duel this kid." So Gorm officiates the duel, and Thorfinn's doing really well to start. Like he's much quicker than he was in their first duel. I mean that makes sense because he was what 6 the first time, and like as like Thorfinn Askeladd's starting to get under Thorfinn's skin. Like he's like, "Who was your dad again? Are you sure I killed him? If I did kill him, how did I kill him?" And he's like doing like saying all this shit, and Thorfinn loses his cool. And Askeladd, instead of killing Thorfinn, he dislocates his shoulder at end the duel.
The duel was presented very well.
Oh yes.
I
And I
really
even like
liked it.
there's foreshadowing. Next duel, Thorfinn's gonna win. Like, it just seems that way.
I feel like he could have won this duel had he not lost his composure. Because like
He
when the duel starts, Thorfinn like is immediately in Askeladd's face, and actually I think he catches him off guard.
He
He's
does.
able to dodge the first attack, and then Thorfinn backs off, and he goes in again. He goes for the finger move again to cut Askeladd's fingers off, and he's able to avoid that by letting go of his sword. But the whole fight. It's brief, but Askeladd is barely reacting to what Thorfinn is doing. He's just moving so fast, and he's being incredibly smart when fighting. That the only way Askeladd could win is if he makes him mad, so Thorfinn loses his cool.
Yeah, I've also thought about that. How I imagine a lot of duels in real life would also just be very short. I mean, a lot of times reach or just you know um being just a little faster than your opponent, and it's over.
Very true, especially if you're dealing with like blades or weapons that
Hmm.
can end a life quickly.
Yeah, you
They can
chop the guy's
deliver
hand off, and the duel's just over.
right.
Because now they have to try to get him to stop bleeding out, and if he doesn't, then I guess he's just dead.
I also liked before the duel, Askeladd was telling his uncle, it's like, your slave isn't worthless. You're just being bad at motivating them to be better for you. And it's like, you can tell that Askeladd knows exactly what he's doing when he's in controlling Thorfinn.
Manipulation.
He's very
He's
good
a,
at it.
he's a master at it.
And that's kind of what makes me dislike him in this episode. He's very like manipulative. And I'm like, I'm kind of losing my favor for him. Yes, he has great comedic moments, but he's a big dick, and I don't like him.
After the duel, we see that there's a big feast that Gorm put on for everyone. And we learn that Thorfinn is pouting again after losing the duel, and that he's sitting on Thor's ship while pouting. And I really like Bjorn here again because he's like, people are like, "Oh, why is he pouting? Like, get over it." And why is he on the ship outside? And Bjorn's like, "It's his old man's ship. It's where he's comfortable. Leave him alone." Like, we see more of Bjorn, like almost being an older brother to Thorfinn.
I was thinking, like, I could definitely see, like, if Thorfinn killed Askeladd, Bjorn just like joining Thorfinn's crew. I could totally see it.
Yeah, I could see Thorfinn taking over the group, and Bjorn would be his right hand man for sure.
This is when we get into Askeladd's theory of slavery, and he calls his uncle a slave to money. and therefore his uncle believes that he can treat Hordelin poorly because he bought a slave with money. So he's like, oh, that's how, like, my uncle Gorm sees that as the chain. Like, well, I have money to buy slaves, but in reality, my uncle is a slave to money. And Askeladd says everyone is a slave to something. And I mean, you can see it in a lot of the characters in this episode. Thorfinn is a slave to wanting revenge for Thor's. Askeladd, you can say, is a slave to wanting treasure and being a pirate.
Bjorn is a slave to mushrooms that make him go crazy.
So I thought that was a very interesting discussion that
Yeah, but to
Askeladd
be
had.
fair, I'm throwing this out there. If he's like, oh, she's his slave, but he's a slave to money. Everyone's a slave. I'm like, yeah, but like, I would rather be a slave to money than be the slave girl.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not really the same thing. I get where you're getting at, Askeladd, but like, like it's when some people say they're like beggars can't be choosers, and then they're like, we're all beggars. I'm like, well, no, not really. Like,
It's like you're going home and sitting in a nice house on a nice couch, and you have people in the streets. So you're not really the same.
yeah, I'm like, from a philosophical stance, you could say that all people are beggars, yes, or you could say that all people are slaves. But then there are actual beggars and actual slaves, and they do have it way worse than your philosophical BS, Askeladd. So the logic doesn't work for me,
I was so pumped to see Thor's again.
even just for a
Where,
few seconds.
yep, Thorfinn sees the ghost of Thor's while he's pouting on the ship, and I just love how they transitioned like 16-year-old Thorfinn back into a 6-year-old, and like he's crying like to Thor's, and like he's just deep down he's still that 6-year-old boy who wants his dad. And I love how Ghost Thor's reminds him like, hey, nobody has any real enemies. Think about it. And Hordelin surprises Thorfinn mid daydream and scares Thorfinn, and Thorfinn pulls a dagger on her.
Yeah, everyone's not really like nice to her,
I
like.
don't think Thorfinn. Oh, I guess he was a little bit of a dick to her when he's like, when Hordelin asked if he was a slave for eating outside, and he's like, "No, I'm a warrior. I can eat wherever the hell I want." And Hordelin tells him, "It's like, hey, we're more alike than like you realize." And Thorfinn's like, "Nuh-uh, like I'm a great warrior and I can do this and this and this and this." It's like, yeah, but you're not because you're taking all these orders from Askeladd. But I don't necessarily think Thorfinn meant to be a dick to her. I think he was just startled, and that like because we see like Thorfinn seems to warm up to her very quickly when he tells her about Vinland.
That's true.
That's the same story that he was told when he was young. So
Yep.
it's almost like he was trying to comfort her in his own way that he knows how.
I'm glad they're bringing Vinland back into the discussion, though, by the way, because Leaf had mentioned that he would do everything in his power to bring Thorfinn back. And so I wonder if we're going, bringing Vinland back into it, we might see Leaf again soon. You never know.
That's a fair point.
I was also wondering during this little scene, it's like, are these two gonna hook up or like have like a little romantic storyline going on?
Thorfinn's gonna kill all the other pirates and villagers and run away with Hordeland.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe worse endings to, that sort of thing.
We learn that the year is now 1013. King Sweyn and Floki are meeting to discuss the upcoming invasion of England now that winter has passed. And the narrator returns to explain all the battles at the beginning of the invasion for us to jump to October of 1013 when we are seeing the invasion of London. So another really well done usage of the time skip here with the narrator.
Yeah, I don't mind a few time skips that are well narrated. Like, it's an effective story telling tool. We don't want to see a 6-year-old Thorfinn. We don't want to see a 12-year-old Thorfinn. We want to see like 18-year-old Thorfinn who's as big as his dad.
I do wonder how many timescapes we have left in us.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're gonna get to like full grown adult Thorfinn here pretty soon at the pace that they're going. So maybe like one or two more time skips and we're gonna be there.
Yeah, I have a feeling this war in England is going to take up a lot of time. Like honestly, that could be the rest of the season. We don't know.
I
It's
mean,
true, it could.
it is the war arc.
Yeah. So I mean, it would make sense. Would it be wild? I'm just throwing it out there. We don't. By the way, we don't look up spoilers before the show for all the listeners out there. So I'm just throwing out the theories here. It'd be wild if Askeladd just died in battle. Thorfinn never gets his proper revenge.
Ooh. Ooh. I never
That
thought
would
about
be
that as an option.
I was thinking about
Ooh.
some interesting plot twists, or something happens and Thorfinn, just determines, you know what, the revenge just isn't worth it. I do wonder, is Thorfinn actually going to kill Askeladd, or are we going to find a way around that?
We gotta hurry up and finish recording this. I gotta watch the next two episodes. I need to know what happens.
Yeah, I'll say, yeah, we finish this episode. Let's see.
the end of this episode ends with an absolute bitching axe throw. And all I was wondering was, who the fuck is that guy?
My guess is probably the first son of the king, because they had mentioned that the second son is taking the battlefield for like the first time and he has no battle experience. And one of the officers next to Floki was trying to, dissuade the king from sending out the second son. So I'm wondering if the Axtro guy is the first son, who is just apparently absolutely crazy, because
I was
that was a
wondering the
great
same
throw.
thing, but looking forward to that dude doing battle.
Yeah, he seems pretty nuts.
What did you two think of these two episodes?
Good episodes, but definitely felt like transitional episodes. Like I feel like the next two are gonna have more meat to them.
I agree with that. I was very excited when I watched these episodes when I watched these episodes the first time, and when I went back and rewatched them, I found myself drifting off just because it's like all right, I know what's happening, and like yes, those battles were really cool, but the stuff outside the battles didn't do enough to really keep my attention. Like, don't get me wrong, still very good episodes, but they felt weaker.
Yeah, I feel kind of invested into Thorfinn himself, but when he's not on the screen or something that's happening is not involving him, for like these two episodes in particular, I've become a little less interested. So I didn't hate the episodes, but they definitely feel like they're a transition into what's coming. And I was a little bored by both of these at times. There were definitely highlights. There were moments where like, oh, that was really cool. And, Thorfinn leaping up to use his daggers to scale the wall. I'm like, that was awesome. That was cool. But there are other moments where I'm following these other French characters, and I was just kind of uninterested. So these two were okay for me.
Now it is time for the waifu of the week. Sean, who is your waifu of the week and why?
This week, I am rolling with Askeladd. He has an absolutely insane scheme to screw over both factions of Franks, get the gold and get out. He leaves with all that bling, and he goes back to his village a hero. He also wins a duel. Honestly, these two episodes, Askeladd was at the top of the world.
Turtle, who is your waifu of the week and why?
This week I have to pick Thorfinn. The duel I thought was excellent to show that Thorfinn has been improving and still can continue to improve. Um, and mostly for opposite of Sean, I think Askeladd is a manipulative dick, and I don't like him anymore. So I'm rooting for Thorfinn to take him out.
But he can't stop winning. How can one man just win so much?
He'll win until he doesn't, and that will be Thorfinn.
I have a
He'll
funny
win-
feeling it's
He'll
coming
win
pretty
until
soon.
he'll win until the plot no longer needs him to win.
Which could be soon.
Or it could be never.
Usually when they have a character be that successful, it's usually right before a downfall. So I'm throwing it out there. I have no idea what's going to happen. I feel like Askeladd might be reaching the end of his reign.
I'm going to go with Bjorn this week. Just for the simple fact that he treated Thorfinn very well this episode. And it's rare to see people treating Thorfinn well. Like, he was telling the crew, lay off him, like, let him sit on his dad's boat, let him pout, let him do, like, let him be, and let him be. And, like, he's like, hey, Thorfinn's not back from, like, cutting the general's head off. Let's wait for him. So, it was just nice to see a character actually care for Thorfinn for once.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot more Bjorn in our future.
Thank you for joining us this week as we watched Vinland Saga. We hope you join us next week for episode 20 of the Anime Banter podcast, where we will be watching episodes 9 and 10 of Vinland Saga. Please give us a 5-star review on all platforms that allow reviews. If you are listening on YouTube, please like the video, hit the notification bell, subscribe, and leave a comment. Turtle, do you have anything you would like to plug?
I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but check out my YouTube channel, RPG Treasure Trove. A friend and I sit down and play an RPG game, so if that's something you're interested in, like, subscribe, and leave some comments if you want to chat.
Sean, do you have anything you would like to plug?
As always, please check out the Deepman Files podcast.
The Anime Banter podcast can be found on Facebook, Twitter, or X, whatever the hell it's going by these days, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube. Thank you all for joining, and we will talk to you next week.